Toyotomi Hideyoshi was a preeminent daimyo, warrior, general, samurai, and politician of the Sengoku period who is regarded as Japan's second great unifier. He succeeded his former liege lord, Oda Nobunaga, and brought an end to the Warring States period. The period of his rule is often called the Momoyama period, named after Hideyoshi's castle. After his death, his young son Hideyori was displaced by Tokugawa Ieyasu. Hideyoshi is noted for a number of cultural legacies, including the restriction that only members of the samurai class could bear arms. He financed the construction, restoration and rebuilding of many temples standing today in Kyoto. Hideyoshi played an important role in the history of Christianity in Japan when he ordered the execution by crucifixion of 26 Christians. Early life. Very little is known for certain about Hideyoshi before 1570, when he begins to appear in surviving documents and letters. His autobiography starts in 1577, but in it Hideyoshi spoke very little about his past. According to tradition, he was born in Owari Province, the home of the Oda clan. He was born of no traceable samurai lineage, being the son of a peasant ashigaru named Yaemon. He had no surname, and his childhood given name was Hayoshimaru, although variations exist. Many legends describe Hideyoshi being sent to study at a temple as a young man, but he rejected temple life and went in search of adventure. Under the name Kinoshita Tokichiro, he first joined the Omegawa clan as a servant to a local ruler named Matsuda Yukatsuna. He traveled all the way to the lands of Omegawa Yoshimoto, daimyo of Tsuruga province, and served there for a time, only to abscond with a sum of money entrusted to him by Matsuda Yukatsuna. Service under Nobunaga. Battle of Okazama. Around 1557 he returned to Owari province and joined the Oda clan, now headed by Oda Nobunaga, as a lowly servant. He became one of Nobunaga's sandal-bearers and was present at the Battle of Okazama in 1560 when Nobunaga defeated Omegawa Yoshimoto to become one of the most powerful warlords in the Sengoku period. According to his biographers, he supervised the repair of Kiyosu Castle, a claim described as apocryphal, and managed the kitchen. In 1561, Hideyoshi married one who was Asano Nagarkatsu's adopted daughter. He carried out repairs on Tsunomata Castle with his younger brother Toyotomi Hidenaga and the bandits Ashiska Masakatsu and Mano Nagayasu. Hideyoshi's efforts were well received because Tsunomata was in enemy territory. He constructed a fort in Tsunomata, according to legend, overnight, and discovered a secret route into Mount Inaba, after which much of the garrison surrendered. Siege of Inabayama Castle. Hideyoshi was very successful as a negotiator. In 1564, he managed to convince, mostly with liberal bribes, a number of Mino warlords to desert the Sato clan. Hideyoshi approached many Sato clan samurai and convinced them to submit to Nobunaga, including the Sato clan's strategist, Takenaka Shigeharu. Nobunaga's easy victory at Inabayama Castle in 1567 was largely due to Hideyoshi's efforts, and despite his peasant origins, Hideyoshi became one of Nobunaga's most distinguished generals, eventually taking the name Hashiba Hideyoshi. The new surname included two characters, one each from Oda's two other right-hand men, Niwa Nagahide and Shibata Katsui. Battle of Anagawa. Hideyoshi led troops in the Battle of Anagawa in 1570, in which Oda Nobunaga allied with Tokugawa Ieyasu to lay siege to two fortresses of the Azai and Asakura clans. In 1573, after victorious campaigns against the Azai and Asakura, Nobunaga appointed Hideyoshi daimyo of 3 districts in the northern part of Omi province. Initially based at the former Azai headquarters in Odani, Hideyoshi moved to Kunitomo, and renamed the city Nagahama in tribute to Nobunaga. Hideyoshi later moved to the port at Imahama on Lake Biwa. From there he began work on Imahama Castle and took control of the nearby Kunitomo firearms factory that had been established some years previously by the Azaya Nisakura. Under Hideyoshi's administration, the factory's output of firearms increased dramatically. Nobunaga sent Hideyoshi to Himeji Castle to conquer the Chogoku region from the Mori clan in 1576. Rise to power, Battle of Yamazaki and conflict with Katsui after the assassinations at Honnoji of Oda Nobunaga and his eldest son Nobutada in 1582 at the hands of Akechi Mitsuhide. Hideyoshi, seeking vengeance for the death of his beloved lord, made peace with the Mori clan and defeated Akechi at the Battle of Yamazaki. At a meeting at Kiyosu to decide on a successor to Nobunaga, Hideyoshi cast aside the apparent candidate, Oda Nobunaga, and his advocate, Oda clan's chief general, Shibata Katsui, by supporting Nobutada's young son, Oda Hidenobu. Having won the support of the other two Oda elders, Niwa Nagahide and Ikeda Tsuneoki, Hideyoshi established Hidenobu's position, as well as his own influence in the Oda clan. Tension quickly escalated between Hideyoshi and Katsui, and at the Battle of Shizugatake in the following year, Hideyoshi destroyed Katsui's forces and thus consolidated his own power, absorbing most of the Oda clan into his control. Constructing of Osaka Castle in 1583, Hideyoshi began construction of Osaka Castle, built on the site of the temple Ishiyama Honganji destroyed by Nobunaga. The castle would become the last stronghold of the Toyotomi clan after Hideyoshi's death. Battle of Komaki and Nagakuta. Nobunaga's other son, Oda Nobukatsu, remained hostile to Hideyoshi. He allied himself with Tokugawa Ieyasu, and the two sides fought at the inconclusive Battle of Komaki and Nagakuta. It ultimately resulted in a stalemate, although Hideyoshi's forces were delivered a heavy blow. Finally, Hideyoshi made peace with Nobukatsu, ending the pretext for war between the Tokugawa and Hashiba clans. Hideyoshi sent Tokugawa Ieyasu his younger sister Asahi no Kata and mother Omando Koro as hostages. Ieyasu eventually agreed to become a vassal of Hideyoshi. Pinnacle of power. Like Nobunaga before him, Hideyoshi never achieved the title of shogun. Instead, he arranged to have himself adopted into the Fujiwara clan, and secured a succession of high court titles including, in 1585, the prestigious position of imperial regent. In 1586, Hideyoshi was formally given the name Toyotomi by the imperial court. He built a lavish palace, the Jurakudai, in 1587 and entertained the reigning emperor, Go-Yozei, the following year. Unified Japan. Afterwards, Hideyoshi subjugated Ki province and conquered Shikoku under the Chozokaba clan. He also took control of Echu province and conquered Kyushu. In 1587, Hideyoshi banished Christian missionaries from Kyushu to exert greater control over the Kirishitan daimyo. However, since he made much of trade with Europeans, individual Christians were overlooked unofficially. In 1588, Hideyoshi forbade ordinary peasants from owning weapons and started a sword hunt to confiscate arms. The swords were melted down to create a statue of the Buddha. This measure effectively stopped peasant revolts and ensured greater stability at the expense of freedom of the individual daimyo. Siege of Odawara. 1590 Siege of Odawara against the Hojo clan in the Kanto region eliminated the last resistance to Hideyoshi's authority. His victory signified the end of the Sengoku period. During this siege, Hideyoshi offered Ieyasu the 8 Hojo-ruled provinces in the Kanto region in exchange for the submission of Ieyasu's 5 provinces. Ieyasu accepted this proposal. Death of Sen no Rikyu. In February 1591, Hideyoshi ordered Sen no Rikyu to commit suicide. Rikyu had been a trusted retainer and master of the tea ceremony under both Hideyoshi and Nobunaga. Under Hideyoshi's patronage, Rikyu made significant changes to the aesthetics of the tea ceremony that had lasting influence over many aspects of Japanese culture. Even after Rikyu's death, Hideyoshi is said to have built his many construction projects based upon aesthetics promoted by Rikyu. Following Rikyu's death, Hideyoshi turned his attentions from tea ceremony to No, which he had been studying since becoming imperial regent. During his brief stay in Nagoya Castle in what is today Saga Prefecture, on Kyushu, Hideyoshi memorized the shite parts of 10 No plays, which he then performed, forcing various daimyo to accompany him on stage as the waker. He even performed before the emperor. Decline of power. The stability of the Toyotomi dynasty after Hideyoshi's death was put in doubt with the death of his only son Tsurumatsu in September 1591. The 3-year-old was his only child. When his half-brother Hidenaga died shortly after, Hideyoshi named his nephew Hidetsugu his heir, adopting him in January 1592. Hideyoshi resigned as Kampaku to take the title of Taiko. Hidetsugu succeeded him as Kampaku. With Hideyoshi's health beginning to falter, but still yearning for some accomplishment to solidify his legacy, he adopted Oda Nobunaga's dream of a Japanese conquest of China and launched the conquest of the Ming dynasty by way of Korea. Hideyoshi had been communicating with the Koreans since 1587, requesting unmolested passage into China. As an ally of Ming China, the Joseon government of the time at first refused talks entirely, and in April and July 1591 also refused demands that Japanese troops be allowed to march through Korea. The government of Joseon was concerned that allowing Japanese troops to march through Korea would mean that masses of Ming Chinese troops would battle Hideyoshi's troops on Korean soil before they could reach China, putting Korean security at risk. In August 1591, Hideyoshi ordered preparations for an invasion of Korea to begin. First campaign against Korea. In the first campaign, Hideyoshi appointed Yukito Hideo as field marshal, and had him go to the Korean peninsula in April 1592. Konishi Yukinaga occupied Seoul, which had been the capital of the Joseon dynasty of Korea, on May 10. After Seoul fell easily, Japanese commanders held a war council in June in Seoul and determined targets of subjugation called Hachido Kunawari by each corps. In only 4 months, Hideyoshi's forces had a route into Manchuria and occupied much of Korea. The Korean king Seonjo of Joseon escaped to Uiju and requested military intervention from China. In 1593, the Wanlai Emperor of Ming China sent an army under General Li Rusong to block the planned Japanese invasion of China and recapture the Korean peninsula. The Ming army of 43,000 soldiers headed by Li Rusong proceeded to attack Pyongyang. On January 7, 1593, the Ming relief forces under Li recaptured Pyongyang and surrounded Seoul, but Kobayakawa Takakuji, Yukito Hideo, Takibana Munshige and Kikawa Hiroi won the Battle of Byok-Jegwan in the suburbs of Seoul. Succession dispute. The birth of Hideyoshi's second son in 1593, Hideyori, created a potential succession problem. To avoid it, Hideyoshi exiled his nephew and heir Hidetsugu to Mount Koya and then ordered him to commit suicide in August 1595. Hidetsugu's family members who did not follow his example were then murdered in Kyoto, including 31 women and several children. 26 Martyrs of Japan. On February 5, 1597, Toyotomi Hideyoshi had 26 Christians killed as an example to Japanese who wanted to convert to Christianity. They are known as the 26 Martyrs of Japan. They included 5 European Franciscan missionaries, 1 Mexican Franciscan missionary, 3 Japanese Jesuits and 17 Japanese laymen including 3 young boys. They were executed by public crucifixion in Nagasaki. second campaign against Korea. After several years of negotiations, Hideyoshi appointed Kobayakawa Hideki to lead a renewed invasion of Korea, but their efforts on the peninsula met with less success than the first invasion. Japanese troops remained pinned down in Gyeongsang province. In June 1598, the Japanese forces turned back several Chinese offensives in Suncheon and Sakyeon, but they were unable to make further progress as the Ming army prepared for a final assault. The Koreans continually harassed Japanese forces through guerrilla warfare. While Hideyoshi's battle at Sakyeon was a major Japanese victory, all three parties to the war were exhausted. He told his commander in Korea, "Don't let my soldiers become spirits in a foreign land." Death. Toyotomi Hideyoshi died September 18, 1598. His death was kept secret by the Council of Five Elders to preserve morale, and the Japanese forces in Korea were ordered to withdraw back to Japan by the Council of Five Elders. Because of his failure to capture Korea, Hideyoshi's forces were unable to invade China. Rather than strengthen his position, the military expeditions left his clan's coffers and fighting strength depleted. His vassals at odds over responsibility for the failure, and the clans that were loyal to the Toyotomi name weakened. The dream of a Japanese conquest of China was put on hold indefinitely. The Tokugawa government later not only prohibited any further military expeditions to the Asian mainland, but closed Japan to nearly all foreigners during the years of the Tokugawa shogunate. It was not until the late 19th century that Japan again fought a war against China through Korea, using much the same route that Hideyoshi's invasion force had used. After his death, the other members of the Council of Five Regents were unable to keep the ambitions of Tokugawa Ieyasu in check. Two of Hideyoshi's top generals, Kato Kiyomasa and Fukushima Masanori, had fought bravely during the war but returned to find the Toyotomi clan still in Ashida Mitsunari in power. He held the generals in contempt, and they sided with Tokugawa Ieyasu. Hideyoshi's underage son and designated successor Hideyori lost the power his father once held, and Tokugawa Ieyasu was declared shogun following the Battle of Sekigahara in 1600. Cultural legacy. Toyotomi Hideyoshi changed Japanese society in many ways. These include imposition of a rigid class structure, restriction on travel, and surveys of land and production. Class reforms affected commoners and warriors. During the Sengoku period, it had become common for peasants to become warriors, or for samurai to farm due to the constant uncertainty caused by the lack of centralized government and always tentative peace. Upon taking control, Hideyoshi decreed that all peasants be disarmed completely. Conversely, he required samurai to leave the land and take up residence in the castle towns. This solidified the social class system for the next 300 years. Furthermore, he ordered comprehensive surveys and a complete census of Japan. Once this was done and all citizens were registered, he required all Japanese to stay in their respective Han unless they obtained official permission to go elsewhere. This ensured order in a period when bandits still roamed the countryside and peace was still new. The land surveys formed the basis for systematic taxation. In 1590, Hideyoshi completed construction of the Osaka Castle, the largest and most formidable in all Japan, to guard the western approaches to Kyoto. In that same year, Hideyoshi banned unfree labor, or slavery, but forms of contract and indentured labor persisted alongside the period penal code as forced labor. Hideyoshi also influenced the material culture of Japan. He lavished time and money on the tea ceremony, collecting implements, sponsoring lavish social events, and patronizing acclaimed masters. As interest in the tea ceremony rose among the ruling class, so too did demand for fine ceramic implements. and during the course of the Korean campaigns, not only were large quantities of prized ceramic ware confiscated, many Korean artisans were forcibly relocated to Japan. Inspired by the dazzling Golden Pavilion in Kyoto, he also constructed a fabulous portable tea room, covered with gold leaf and lined inside with red gossamer. Using this mobile innovation, he was able to practice the tea ceremony wherever he went, powerfully projecting his unrivaled power and status upon his arrival. Politically, he set up a governmental system that balanced out the most powerful Japanese warlords. A council was created to include the most influential lords. At the same time, a regent was designated to be in command. Just prior to his death, Hideyoshi hoped to set up a system stable enough to survive until his son grew old enough to become the next leader. A council of 5 elders was formed, consisting of the 5 most powerful daimyo. Following the death of Midatoshi, however, Tokugawa Ieyasu began to secure alliances, including political marriages. Eventually, the pro-Toyotomi forces fought against the Tokugawa in the Battle of Sekigahara. Ieyasu won and received the title of Seitai Shogun 2 years later. Hideyoshi is commemorated at several Toyokuni shrines scattered over Japan. Ieyasu left in place the majority of Hideyoshi's decrees and built his shogunate upon them. This ensured that Hideyoshi's cultural legacy remained. In a letter to his wife, Hideyoshi wrote, "I mean to do glorious deeds and I am ready for a long siege, with provisions and gold and silver in plenty, so as to return in triumph and leave a great name behind me. I desire you to understand this and to tell it to everybody." Names. Because of his low birth with no family name to the eventual achievement of imperial regent, the title of highest imperial nobility, Toyotomi Hideyoshi had quite a few names throughout his life. At birth, he was given the name Hiyoshi Maru. At Junpuku he took the name Kinoshita Tokichiro. Later, he was given the surname Hashiba, and the honorary court office Chikuzen no Kami. As a result, he was styled Hashiba Chikuzen no Kami Hideyoshi. His surname remained Hashiba even as he was granted the new Yuji or Sei Toyotomi by the emperor. His name is correctly Toyotomi no Hideyoshi. Using the writing system of his time, his name is written as the Toyotomi Yuji was simultaneously granted to a number of Hideyoshi's chosen allies, who adopted the new Yuji. The Catholic sources of the time refer to him as Emperor Take-sama, and the honorific Sama. Toyotomi Hideyoshi had been given the nickname Kozaru, meaning little monkey, from his lord Oda Nobunaga because his facial features and skinny form resembled that of a monkey. He was also known as the bald rat, wife and concubine, nene, or one, later Kodian, wife, Yodadono, or cha-cha, later daikon, concubine.